I've got a question for you. Who's the person you're being? Are you satisfied? It's okay. This is a judge-free zone, and it's exactly why I started the show. Welcome to Be the Person, a podcast for the brave and the curious who are ready to explore who they are fully created to be. I'm your host, Randall, the adventurous one leading this investigative journey of transformation. By delving into topics and asking unexpected questions, we will discover the keys for unlocking our true potential and being our best selves today. You may be surprised by what you find when you let go of fear in order to discover the answers of becoming the person you were made to be. Welcome to Be the Person podcast. I'm so excited about our conversation. I'm just thrilled that Stephanie is here to join us. And Stephanie, welcome to Be the Person.
Thank you. I'm excited that you asked me to be on this today. I'm excited about our conversation.
Yes. So tell our audience a little bit about you. We've known each other for several years, but tell me, how did you get to where you are today? And tell us a little bit about what you are doing.
Yeah. So my journey to get to where I am today has taken a few twists and turns. This is not some place that I intended on going when I kind of started out schooling. I got my undergraduate degree actually in exercise science from a Division II school in Ohio, Ashland University. I ran on their track and field team. I was a sprinter and middle distance runner. And my whole goal was kind of either physical therapy school or I wanted to do coaching, collegiate coaching for cross country and track and field. And so kind of as I was progressing through school, through track and training, I made the decision after I graduated to spend a few more years in Ashland. I graduated in 2011 and the Olympic trials were in 2012. And so I wanted to try to continue training through the trials. And so I took a break from school after I got my undergrad, still planning on going to school for physical therapy, but I started coaching while I was training. And we had taken our cross-country team to the cross-country national meet one year. And I was just heartbroken at the amount of female athletes that looked like they had eating disorders. And so at the time, I had kind of decided, man, somebody needs to do something about this. And why not have it be me? And so at that point, I kind of shifted gears, left the goal of physical therapy and coaching in the rear view and transitioned into counseling. So I went to graduate school for counseling, moved out to Colorado. I have family here. And so while I was going through graduate school, I was coaching at Orange Theory. I was coaching cross country still at the high school level until I graduated. And then now I'm able to do what I do now, which is counseling for females, males, teens, young adults struggling with a variety of different things. But yeah, it has definitely been a journey to get here.
Yeah, I didn't even know part of that. I didn't know you were going to go to physical therapy school.
Yeah.
And we were lucky enough to have you coach with us at our academy studio for several years while you were going to grad school. And I love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a great opportunity. And it fits so well into what I do now. I feel like sports, athletics, fitness just has so many good parallels to counseling and mental health. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And I know that you deal with eating disorders, but that's not all you deal with. Is that correct? You deal with a multiple.
Yeah. Yeah. So I focus primarily on working with teens and young adults, males, females with anxiety, depression, eating disorders, trauma. I love working with people on like identity development. And, I think especially with sports and athletics, when you graduate and you're no longer doing your sports, there's an identity piece of like, well, who am I now? What do I like? What do I do? So I love working with identity and like big life transitions.
Well, I can see that you would be amazing at helping people figure that part out. And
Yeah.
even when we were talking about this interview, there were so many different directions that we could go with it. just
Mhm.
because mental health is such a huge issue right now. And at the time, I had just gone to the Orange Theory conference and I was telling you the story of I got into Orange Theory because I just truly, truly love the brand, what it did for me and what it does for other people.
Mhm.
And I've always felt like it was a privilege to own studios and help people in that way. But when COVID happened and we shut down our studios, and then we had to reopen, wear masks, and I always felt like I was making people upset.
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
took part of the joy out of Orange Theory for me. And, I didn't even realize that I felt like I was still carrying a weight around. And
Mhm.
going to the Orange Theory convention really convicted me. I still love this brand. I love what it does for people, but I really understood that I was carrying a weight from COVID. And so when we were debriefing with our team, I just started crying. And I felt like I needed to put that weight down and
Mhm.
pick up the joy again of what Orange Theory is.
Yeah.
And I just thought, you know what? If I'm carrying that weight around and I didn't even realize it,
Mhm.
are other people doing the same thing? And it might not be the weight of running a business, but it could be something else.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, I try not to use absolutes like never always, but I would say that like almost everybody is carrying a weight of some sort, either now or they have at some point in their lives. And that can look like a lot of different things. I mean, especially for a business owner in the situation of COVID, there is a level of survival that happens, right? Like there are all sorts of uncertainties with, am I going to be able to reopen? When is that going to happen? How am I going to make money to like buy food or keep a roof over my head? And so especially when it comes to questions of survival, we go into our fight, flight, or freeze response, and that is a huge weight to carry. But I think for a lot of people, there is the weight of shame, grief, guilt, loss, the weight of being a perfectionist, feeling like we have to be perfect. I think there are a lot of weights of what ifs. What if I take a risk to start my own business? What if I give up my addiction? What if I give up my eating disorder? And so there are definitely a lot of weights that people carry. Being a provider, the weight of being the person in your household who is financially making the most and providing for your family. And so there are definitely, I think, a lot of weights that people carry around on a day-to-day basis. I kind of get this visual in my mind of like, if you're one of those people, I know I am, where when you go to get groceries, you want to make it into the house in one trip, right? Like I
Yes.
am going to line those bags of groceries on my arms and I'm going to try to carry it all in the house all at one time. A lot of people have oftentimes a lot of weights that they're trying to carry.
I think that's a good analogy with the grocery bags because I
Yeah.
think we do stack it all on top. And
Mhm.
when we're carrying all those different weights, what effects do you see that have on people?
Yeah. Yeah, I think there are a lot of different effects that it can have, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I think, mentally and emotionally, it can create a lot of anxiety for people, a lot of depression, low mood. It can trigger a lot of stuff that we've experienced in our past. It can create issues within relationship with people, right? Because when we feel this pressure of carrying all of this weight, oftentimes we tend to be less patient, more irritable, more annoyed by things. And that can come out in our relationships with our friends, with our families. And so it definitely has an effect on relationships as well. I think spiritually, it can cause people to wrestle with their faith when maybe they felt very strongly about their belief in God, for example. I think it can cause people to feel maybe an unfairness or an injustice or ask that big question of like, why? And then physically, I think it's so hard to separate our spirit, our emotions, and our physical body. I think they all connect to one another. And so when you're experiencing some of these extreme mental and emotional experiences, depression, anxiety, when you're wrestling with your faith, I think it very much does have significant physical impacts. A lack of sleep, maybe you're only getting 4 to 5 hours of sleep a night. Maybe you're not able to sleep at all through the night. Maybe you're having significant nightmares. Maybe for some people, when they experience significant anxiety, it causes a lot of stomach issues, nausea, upset stomach. And so then it becomes hard to eat and hard to nourish your body. So then challenges with nourishing yourself properly. I think of fitness and exercise. And when you are not sleeping well and you're not eating well, you're not able to push yourself and challenge yourself to the best of your ability. And so it just becomes the perfect storm of seeing challenges kind of in all areas of your life.
I think that's so true. And I would just agree with you that we're all one person. And, when we closed down our studios, I saw all of those things came out. Anxiety. I wasn't able to sleep. Orange Theory was closed, so I couldn't do my normal thing.
Yeah.
And they all had a big effect on me. My body went into fight or flight, and it took a long time and a lot of intentional work to get out of that cycle. And I'm imagining that we have some people out here listening and they're thinking, You know what? That's me. I recognize a weight. I recognize some of the symptoms that you're saying, but I don't know what to do. What would you suggest as far as how do they put that weight down and start to move forward?
Yeah. Yeah. So, kind of some of the big things that come up for me with that question. So, first and foremost, self-awareness. So, I'll say them first and then I'll go into more detail. So, self-awareness, self-compassion, and self-talk. First and foremost, self-awareness. We can't change something that we aren't aware of. So, if we aren't aware that we are carrying these weights, or if we aren't aware of, we're entering into the holiday season. Next week is Thanksgiving. And so I think the holidays increase some of the weights that people are carrying because we're interacting with more family who have maybe hurt us in the past, or there is more stress for providers to buy Christmas gifts. And so a lot of weights come with the holiday season. And so self-awareness in what weights you're carrying, what times of year those weights cycle back around. And I mean, if we aren't aware, then there's nothing that we're going to be able to do about them. So self-awareness is the first piece. I like to increase self-awareness through like reflecting and journaling. I'm a huge journaler and I'll just sit down and start writing, and there will be things that come out that I didn't even know I was feeling or thinking. So I think journaling is my go-to, although people can learn self-awareness from a lot of different ways. Self-compassion is next, in knowing that like you are carrying this weight for a reason. Typically, there is something that has happened to you that is prompting you to feel this weight that you're carrying. And so giving yourself grace, giving yourself time and space to get it right sometimes, and maybe sit the weight down, and giving yourself grace and knowing that there are times where you're probably going to pick your weight up and cling on to it because that's what you know. So giving yourself grace to like allow it to be a journey with its own ups and downs. And then I think self-talk is probably, in my opinion, one of the more important things, because if you're telling yourself that you can't sit your weight down, if you're telling yourself that you're not good enough, if you're telling yourself that you're not worthy, then the likelihood of things changing is a lot less than if you were encouraging and positive and believed in yourself. So self-awareness, self-compassion, and self-talk would, I would say, be the big three.
I love those. And, I'm always so grateful for you because when you were coaching at Orange Theory, I remember specifically a class where I was running on the treadmill and you were coaching and saying, if you're talking to yourself and you wouldn't say it to the person on the treadmill next to you, stop saying it to yourself. And in that moment, like I realized in a split second, oh my gosh, I would never say what I was saying to myself at that time to the person next to me. I wouldn't think about it. I would have no friends, no employees. And, I was just probably 10 things that I was beating myself up about. And I can be really, really hard on myself.
Mhm.
That inner critic comes out.
Yeah.
And it was just the first time, maybe that self awareness really went on to
Mhm.
start to pay attention to that voice that I was speaking to myself with
Mhm.
and start to really change that.
Mhm.
But it's been a process and not necessarily a super easy one. Do you wish you had more community, deeper friendships? I have an amazing way for you to build it. On our wellness retreat in Italy next April, we'll be spending 4 nights in Tuscany where we'll be doing biking, wine tasting, and cooking classes. We'll finish with 2 days touring Rome. It's the perfect Italian getaway. Look for more information in the show notes. So, maybe advice for people if they're listening and they're recognizing, wow, I have that inner mean voice too.
Mhm.
What can you do about it? How do you change that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I love, like when I'm sitting with clients, I love kind of using what you just shared. If they're telling me something and they're being very critical, they're operating out of the self critic part of themselves. I will challenge them to literally think of their best friend, their favorite person in the world, and flip the roles. And if their best friend were saying all of the things that they were struggling with, would you say to your best friend the things that you're saying to yourself? I love asking that question because I think it just puts it into a completely different perspective that we oftentimes don't think of, right? Like our voice is the voice that we hear the majority of the day. So I think of there's a type of therapy called cognitive behavioral therapy. And it's basically, this is oversimplifying it, but it's basically this idea that our thoughts affect our emotions and our emotions affect our behaviors, and then our behaviors reinforce our thoughts. And so it just becomes this giant cycle that is hard to get out of. And so if we're not aware of our thoughts when our thoughts are the thoughts that we hear the majority of the day, it does create this really unhealthy cycle that can be challenging to get out of. I think this goes back to that self awareness piece. First and foremost, becoming aware of your self talk and what your inner critic is saying. So again, for me, that's journaling. Some people like to make thought logs. And so you can do it at any point in the day. It can be each time you recognize a critical thought. You can stop, either pull the notes section out on your phone, or if you've got a little notepad in your purse or your car, you can stop and literally write it down. And so the first piece is building self-awareness to hearing that inner critic and your self-talk. And then the second piece is I just again go back to that question of, is this something that I would say to my best friend? If the answer is no, what would I tell them? I think of just, when was it? Yesterday at Orange Theory, they had the 12-minute run for distance. And I'm running next to my friend Megan, and it's getting close to the end of the 12 minutes. And, we're both struggling at that point, working really hard. And we're encouraging each other on the treadmill. And I'm telling her, like, you've got it, stick with it, keep going, asking yourself, what would you say to your best friend? And then saying those things to yourself. I I don't know if you've ever seen this or anybody watching this has seen this, but there's a YouTube video of a little girl and she's standing on her bathroom counter in front of the mirror at the start of the day. And she's saying all these things to herself, like, I'm lovely, I'm beautiful, I'm kind, I'm smart, I'm compassionate. And she's saying all these really sweet, positive affirmations to herself. And so I think that's a part of it too, recognizing what you need to hear and reminding yourself of those things throughout your day. Maybe that is taking a whiteboard marker and writing on your bathroom mirror positive affirmations and things that you want to believe about yourself, but don't yet believe about yourself. And then I think part of it too is like eventually being able to catch yourself in the moment when your inner critic starts speaking up and stopping yourself, taking a step back, and really putting in some of those positive affirmations or putting in some of those things that you would say to your friend and literally saying those things to yourself. I think that that's a big piece of it as well.
Do you think, let's say we write them on the mirror or we start to say, and we don't, because that voice has been so mean in the past, we don't necessarily believe it up
Yeah.
front.
Yeah.
How does that process work to get that voice to change? Do you just keep saying it and keep writing it until you do believe it?
Yeah. I think that's definitely a piece of it. I mean, think of how long we have been saying negative, critical things to ourselves about ourselves. For some people, it has been years. So there has been this significant repetition of negative self talk over the course of many years. That's not going to change in a week. And so in some instances, it really is repetition. I am going to keep saying this until I believe it. You know, I love neuroscience. I think that it's so fascinating. And so my mind immediately goes to like, because we've been saying negative thoughts about ourselves for so long, that neural pathway in your brain is really strong. It is the well-worn path. It is the way that your mind is going to go. And the more often, the more frequently we say positive things to ourselves, you create a new neural pathway in your brain. And the more you use it, the stronger it gets. So that's certainly a piece of it. I think another piece of it is saying something initially that feels true. Because if I believe that I am the worst person in the world, if I try to take that to the far opposite extreme and say, I am the most wonderful, kind, loving person that there ever was, I'm probably not going to believe that. And then I'm just going to throw that in the trash can and go right back to my negative self-talk. So finding something that feels truthful for you. Maybe in that scenario, it's I've made some decisions that haven't been the best for me, and I'm working to be a better person. So something that feels truthful, something that feels good. And then I think going back to that mind body connection, the next part of it is also being mindful of your body and how your body is. Because when we think of being in our fight, flight, or freeze response, we are tense, we are guarded, we're taking short, shallow breaths, our heart rate is faster through the roof. We're hot, we're sweaty, all the things that come along with our fight, flight, or freeze response. And so I think there's a big part of it also that is trying to regulate your nervous system, trying to regulate your body, taking a deep breath, releasing the tension that you feel in your body, your shoulders, your neck, your jaw. So doing some of that stuff first. So your body is in a position to be able to receive the things that you're saying to yourself, and then saying the positive affirmations and the positive self-talk to yourself.
Would you agree then it's really a choice that we have?
Yeah.
Not necessarily an easy one, but a choice, and a choice that we really have to make daily again and again and again.
Yes, absolutely. I think that it is so easy when we get in that well-worn path of negative, self-critical self-talk. It is easy to feel like we don't have a choice and there's no way out, but you're absolutely right. We have the ability to stop and take a step back and choose how we want to think for the day.
And I think part of this podcast is really helping people be the person that they were meant to be. And if you're in that cycle, if you're recognizing, or maybe for the first time, wow, I have a really mean inner critic, like today is the day you get to start and start to change that. Just like I did on the treadmill. And again, that has been a process over years of saying, no, I'm not going to believe that anymore, and saying these nicer things and really deciding who is the person that
Yeah.
you want to be. And you get to work to be that every day.
Yeah, and the way that you do that, there's a particular client that's coming to mind for me who she's so sweet, and self-talk is one of the things that we've worked a lot on, and she's got some younger children, and so she decided that she was gonna like really kind of nail down and work on her self-talk, and one of the things that she was gonna do to stop herself to change her self-talk was anytime that she recognized that inner critic, she was going to be interrupting cow, and she was just mentally going to moo at herself to get that thought to stop. So she would notice a thought, she would be interrupting cow and moo at herself, and then she would introduce the positive, truthful affirmation that she wanted to say for herself. And so really it is important for you to find what works for you in helping you to stop the thought, to really introduce a more positive, truthful thought.
I like that. That's a good way to definitely stop it and
Yeah.
start to think about something else.
Yeah.
If we transition just a little bit here, and this season, we're really focused on helping people experience more joy. And
Mhm.
like you said, for some, the holiday season can feel really challenging for all those different weights. For others, it's a hard time. And it's always, I would say for most people, it's a really, really busy time.
Yeah.
So, what's your advice for helping people in this season, whether they're really busy, it's a hard season, and they have all these weights? How do we collectively experience joy together?
Yeah. So this is another one of those questions where I do feel like it can be very individualized, right? Like just like the Christmas tree debate. Do you put your Christmas tree up on November 1st? Do you wait for the day after Thanksgiving? Do you wait for the first day of December? And so I definitely think that one of the biggest things that can be helpful is first and foremost like taking a moment to reflect on previous years and recognize what was hard, what you wish you would have done differently, and then you can kind of dive into how can I do that for myself in this upcoming year. And so for me, I would say it's really identifying what are your values going into the holiday season. I mean, I think of the fitness industry, and holidays, you work them all usually except Christmas. And so like I remember for myself when I was early in my fitness career in Ohio, I would start to get so frustrated that people would get holidays off and I was working. And so then knowing that, I was able to set boundaries for myself with blocking time off or taking days off or choosing when I was going to work and when I wasn't. So I would say recognizing what your values are. Maybe it's spending time with family. Maybe it's serving other people, setting boundaries so that you can really make sure that you are spending time doing the things that align with your value system. That might look like saying no to people, saying no to work, saying no to a get together that is maybe just more than what you have the capacity for. So I think those are some really important things moving into the holiday season. Scheduling downtime for yourself. Holidays can be really busy. And so making sure that you schedule time for yourself to just be able to sit and rest and relax. Thinking through the things that bring you joy. Is it going ice skating? Is it looking at Christmas lights? And making sure that you plan to do some of those things for yourself as well. I think there are some people around the holiday season who have experienced significant loss, or along with loss, oftentimes there's been like a change in different traditions, holiday traditions that you have. And so I think part of it is also feeling those emotions, not trying to distract and shove them off to the side because that's only going to make them bigger, but feeling those emotions, asking for help if you need it, if you are worried about being alone, asking to get together with friends, family, people that you love and care about, creating new holiday traditions with people that you love and care about. So those are just a couple ideas that come to mind on how to increase joy throughout the holidays.
Those are so good. And I think for me, just when you said be intentional and think about things that you really do value,
Mhm.
I'm a journaler too, just like you. Like sometimes I have to write it down though to say, what are those things? What do I really want this Christmas season or the holiday season to look like? And then be intentional. Because if I'm not, I feel like I run around like a crazy lady and do things for everyone else. And at the end, I'm just exhausted. And I don't want to end up that way. I want to be real intentional about feeling joy this season.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially with how fast I feel like this year has gone. It is easy when you're not intentional about the things that you want to experience or you want to accomplish, or even scheduling downtime. When you're not intentional about it, it comes and goes in the blink of an eye. It just goes so fast because it's so easy to get wrapped up in everything else that's happening around you, that oftentimes we do tend to be the last people that we think of to have our needs met.
Yeah, I agree. And just you saying like just sometimes that answer is no. And maybe it's something that, you like to do, but in this season you can't. And
Mhm,
it's okay just to give the answer of no.
mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And no, I mean, it's, we say it here and it sounds easy, but I also want to acknowledge too, like sometimes saying no is hard because sometimes, and again, it feels like it goes back to that choice piece, because sometimes it is something that you really love and you really want to do. But I do think part of that self reflection and self awareness that we've talked about a little bit throughout the episode today is recognizing what your capacity is. Do I have the capacity to say yes to something? Or do I have to say no? And then it's kind of prioritizing the things that matter most to you, the yeses that are the most important. So you can make sure that those are things that you do. And that can kind of help you to decide, even if it's something that you want to do, it might be something that you say no to because it's lower on that priority list for you.
Yeah, that's such good advice. As we wrap up, is there something that you feel like people really need to hear right now or that you want to share?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think it's so funny because I think of when I coached at Orange Theory through now, and I feel like the message has stayed pretty consistent over the years. I don't feel like the message that I want people to hear has changed much. But I mean, I would really say that you are worth it. Some of these things are hard and you can absolutely do hard things. You are stronger than you think that you are. You're capable of more than you think. So I would say that is probably the big takeaway that I wish everybody could hear. I love the quote, and I'm going to paraphrase it because I'm not going to be able to get it right off the top of my head, but that idea that there's nobody that you wouldn't love if you could hear their story. And so just that idea of like, you are amazing. You are wonderful. You are capable. You can do hard things. You're worth it. Yeah, I think that would be it.
I feel like I want to just record your voice and say that every morning when I look in the mirror. But I think those can be some great things to say to ourselves. Exactly that.
Yeah.
Well, Steph, you really are amazing and wonderful. You've been a gift in my life to so many at Orange Theory. How do people connect with you and tell us a little bit about your practice? If maybe somebody's listening and they're thinking, I need more of Steph. I need Steph's help. Tell me a little bit about how that would work.
Yeah. First, thank you for saying that. That's very kind of you. Yeah. My practice is called Peak Performance Counseling Services. And I am accepting new clients right now, depending on availability. So, a couple of easy ways that you can connect with me. If you just get on Google and type in Stephanie Tinney counselor, Colorado Springs. There's a website that will pop up. It's psychologytoday.com. And there's a button on that website with email, phone that you could email me or call me. So that's option 1, is just Googling. Option 2, you can send me an email. And my email address is stephanie@peakperformancecounseling.com. And then option 3 would be to send me a text or call my work cell phone number, which is 970-648-4162. So those would be kind of the 3 ways that people could contact me. And if availability doesn't work out, if fit doesn't work out, then I can help to connect you with other awesome people in the area that might be able to support you better in what you need than what I can. I am accepting clients. If it's not a fit for whatever reason, scheduling, personality wise, then I can help to connect you with someone who would work.
I love that. And do you do in person and also via Zoom?
Yeah. Yep. So I love to do in person if at all possible. I think that it's just so nice to be able to sit in the same space face to face with somebody, but I do have a teletherapy option if that works best for people.
Great. And I'll make sure I include all of that in our show notes. So if you missed it, you can easily connect with you. Thank you so much for all you've shared. I think you have such wisdom when it comes to this area in just dealing with mental health, the voice that we talk to ourselves, and really how we experience joy this holiday season.
Thanks, Annie. It was awesome to be on here, to be able to talk with you. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Great. If you know somebody that might need this, I would just encourage you to share this episode. And please, if you would rate and review with 5 stars, I would appreciate it. Have a wonderful day.